This one's been long overdue, the 3,000 round review of the Oracle Arms 2311. We'll go into what it is, why I bought it, the fit and finish, the shooting impressions, the overall ownership experience, and then some things you would want to consider before buying one of those, as well as my final opinion on it. So let's get into it. This one might be long, but this is what got the channel started. So what it is and why I bought it. This is a 9mm handgun that is single action only, styled after a 2011, except it takes P320 magazines, and the reason I was excited, it is fully ambidextrous. The reason I bought it is during the time this was announced, a lot of people in my shooting group were really heavy into the staccato scene, and then me being left-handed, I personally don't like to buy guns that aren't ambidextrous or can't be made ambidextrous. So I was just kind of, I try them out. Man, those staccatos are nice, but I can't. There's no controls for me. And then this was announced, so I kind of dove head first. Going into the fit and finish, when I went and picked this up from my FFL, I was pretty excited. It seemed like a high quality firearm. It fit pretty well compared to some of the staccatos I've messed with. I would say it was up to par in terms of fit. Let's say it doesn't have that kind of glass ball bearing type feel when you run the slide the way a 2011 does. But in general, the lockup and how well fit it was seemed comparable to a P. And just to that, in my experience, I've handled maybe, I don't know, 7 to 8-ish staccatos. I think two or three XCs, one of the compacts, and a couple of the Ps. And then I don't know, there's been some other ones thrown in there too. And they seem to be, some are a little bit worse than this, some are better than this. I mean, I'd say on the whole, they're probably slightly better than this, but I've seen some that are comparable or not. So I would say this is staccato-esque fit. Now, the finish was the first thing that concerned me. It seemed a little thin in places. The magwell was, you could just tell it was pretty thin when I took it apart to initially clean it and oil it. There's some parts on the inside that either had missed some of the coating, or it was so thin that just like running the slide and making sure everything worked at the FFL had essentially gotten rid of it. The other thing was on my slide release, the original one here. Might be hard to tell, but the finish on it is all kind of chewed up. Doesn't really look so great. It didn't affect the performance of the gun, but just kind of ugly. They ended up sending me a new one. So I noticed the finish on the slide release. As I kept going with the gun, I noticed, it seemed to stay relatively high quality, but yeah, I started to notice little things here and there. The main one being the slide plate would not fit on the gun when I was trying to mount it up. And I tried hammering it, all kinds of things. A lot of the things I'm gonna be saying you could see on my channel in earlier videos. But what the issue was, this little divot on, there you go. A little divot on the plate meets up with something on the top of the slide. And this was not either cut the right way, or the finish on this was too thick and it was not lining up. When I emailed Oracle, they sent me new parts for both of these pretty much immediately. And another issue with the fit and finish, I noticed I immediately wanted to put an X300 on this gun, but if you can see, this is the Picatinny key for the quick detach X300. It is not on there very secure. The universal key, like for Glocks, is pretty bad. Definitely worse than this. So they pretty much want you to use the thumb screw model, or in a lot of their press pictures and videos, you'll see they have the key with the little pull-out tab thing. That's what fits this. It's a bit annoying to me that this is the spec Picatinny rail, and I could take this X300 and put it on the receiver of an AR-15. It fits just fine, but you put it on this and it's not at all. And this one is even shimmed up with electrical tape, and it's still that loose. So going into the shooting impressions and overall ergonomics, we'll start with the ergonomics. It is a big, chunky gun, and you can feel that. It's not too dissimilar from a 2011, but it is, I'd say maybe a little bit more chunky. It's a little more, sculpted for a hand, but it's chunkier. It's hard to describe. I would say it's on par with the 2011 in terms of how chunky it is. The controls all feel nice and click nice. The serrations are good. I could use a little bit more texture on the grip, but overall it shot very well with a certain exception we'll get into. The main reason being it being a big heavy handgun, it does not have a lot of recoil. It being high bore axis, it still kind of flips a bit, but it is soft shooting. As I kept shooting it, one, the optic plate got loose, and two, I noticed the trigger was acting a little strange. It seemed like every 1 in 5 trigger pulls, you would get one that is noticeably heavier. On top of that, 1 in 5 shots, and this does not line up with the trigger. It was independent of the trigger issue. It would throw a flyer, so it made sighting in the red dot. When I finally got the proper in-spec optic plate installed, it made zeroing it pretty difficult because it seemed like 1 in 5 shots was a flyer. The other main takeaway from shooting it is that this gun felt extremely undersprung, and for those that don't understand what that means, in a perfect world, your ammo, springs, everything lining up. When a gun fires, it would return right to where you're aiming. And what is normal in most guns is that they overspring them, mostly for like duty ammo is what I've been told, but it could be various reasons. And what that feels like is when the gun fires, it'll come back and go under where you were aiming. Well, what happens with the Oracle Arms 2311, regardless of ammo, with one exception, is that it goes off and then it comes back, but it's still high. And then it goes off and it comes back, and then it's a little higher. And then it goes off and comes back, and then it's higher. And it does that all the time. The exception being I shot the Jello Shots competition ammo that you see a lot of Instagrammers using. That it would return perfect, which confirmed to me that it was the springing of the gun, because if it returns perfectly with something that light, it is definitely, the gun is not sprung for full power ammo. Another thing of note when it came to the shooting impressions of this gun, originally it came with a high-vis front sight. I'm just in general not a fan of that, so I put a Dawson blacked out sight on there, the same height and everything as recommended by Oracle Arms, and it's been pretty good. But with the 507 comp, I had a very, very low co-witness, but with the 508T, you see there's almost no co-witness. Not the end of the world, but some people, especially in a duty scenario, would want a co-witness, and I understand that, so something to keep in mind. Another thing in the shooting impressions, this gun is ambidextrous, but if you take a look at the top-down version, this is one thing the new Staccato has done a little bit better. You might be able to tell on the safety and then the slide release. The side for a lefty is a little bit smaller, and then the slide releases, it's not chintzy, it's just not as good as the one for a right-handed shooter. One thing that does, it's a small nitpick, but something that does bother me, when you're doing an ambidextrous gun, if you make all the controls for righty bigger, like, you're not really going in the spirit of being ambidextrous. Like, it should be the same side to side, especially if that's your big selling point. And the other thing is, like, if you get a really high grip on this gun, and when you flick the safety off, it can, as a lefty, it can kind of dig into your pointer finger knuckle. Whereas on the right hand, at least, you know, it's not my dominant hand, but when I use it as if I was righty, it's small enough that it doesn't. So it's like, I don't know why they wouldn't just do the same size side to side. You would think that would be easier to machine, but I don't really know that. So in talking about how lightly sprung this gun is, we'll just roll into the ownership experience of this gun for me. To start out with, you know, out of the box, we have the bad slide lock, slide release, and the out of spec optic plate. So that was taken care of like within 0 rounds essentially. In the first 400 to 500 rounds is when I noticed that this gun was so lightly sprung. So what I did was I emailed Oracle and asked what kind of recoil springs this gun used, and they said any recoil spring from the P320 X5. Well, great, I have one of those. So I took a Springco 1911 spring, 15 pound, and put it in here. Just for record, the factory is 14 pounds, so I only went up 1 pound, and this fits the gun that shares recoil springs with this, according to Oracle. So I put the 15 pound recoil spring in, and it recoiled just how I wanted it to. Maybe slightly high, like it's, you know, sprung for duty ammo, but more or less coming back right to where I aimed. The problem became is that I would get, specifically when trying to shoot fast, I would get hammer follow. And it would happen pretty consistently. So there was some issue here where it seemed like more than just the recoil spring. If going up 1 pound drastically affected how this gun shot in terms of reliability that bad, there's more going on in here. And that started an email chain with Oracle Arms. It happened all the way through the first 1,000 rounds. And then around that time was, you know, trying to troubleshoot the springing issue and, you know, trying different ammo, trying the 15-pound spring, going back to the stock spring. I bought the SIG X5 12-pound spring just because on a hunch I thought, well, maybe this is the one they specifically named in the email. So I was like, maybe there's something to like just using the one they're talking about. And the 12-pound spring, it worked and it shot fine, but it felt really snappy and it was still undersprung where it was like now it was even worse undersprung. And I tried the little thumb ledges, that helped a little bit. The only thing that would get this thing to return to where it was aimed was completely stock and using Jello Shots ammo, and that just isn't in the cards for what I wanted to use this gun for. So then I between that, around that time, I noticed I had some dings and dents in the front end of the gun. I never dropped this gun, so unless, you know, something happened and I wasn't aware of it, it must have came from the factory that way, at least in my eyes. And it looked like it, you know, didn't have any shiny exposed metal, so it looked like it had been coated over. My assumption was that it had came from the factory that way. To Oracle's credit, they did fix it. I didn't notice it when I first opened it up, so I don't want to throw too much shade on them for that, but I will give them props for fixing that. So it went into Oracle Arms to get that fixed, to take a look at the springing issue, because in our email chain back and forth, they said they purposely spring them light, but in my opinion, it's way too light. Oh, that was the other thing. Within the first 1,000 rounds, the magazine release, the one it came with was a standard P320 magazine release. And what would happen was anytime you'd insert the magazine at like even just barely an off angle, it would get stuck in there and wouldn't go up. So you'd have to like pull it out and like reinsert. They mailed me a Oracle proprietary, it would fit in a P320 magazine release, and that did fix that. So I was going back for the dings and dents and to take a look at the springing issue. While I was boxing that up and getting sent out, I noticed within the first 1,000 rounds that the magazines appear to be out of spec, and we'll pull this up. So this is a P320 magazine that has probably 2 to 3 times as many rounds through it as the Oracle mag I'm going to show you. And this is the Oracle mag. So yeah, that, in my opinion, that's some accelerated wear. It appears to be out of spec. And if you look at their website, they're now offering the Magpul A mags. So I think I'm right there. I'm pretty sure that their standard mags are out of spec because they changed them. So yeah, this thing goes to Oracle. 4 months go by and I get it back. You know, I put the optic back on there and I go to shoot it, and within that 1,000 rounds, my new optic plate just constantly loosens up, and then I reinstall it, and then it loosens and I reinstall it. And then finally I just like dumped a shit ton of blue Loctite on the screws, and for whatever reason it's not coming loose now, but it was like a comical amount of blue Loctite to finally get that to not come loose. The other thing I noticed after I got it back is, while they did fix the front end, I noticed within that 1,000 rounds that now the gun was starting to kind of like eat itself up. You can kind of see, it might be hard to tell, I'll roll in some pictures, but back there is kind of chewing itself up, and then the barrel hood where it like locks up, that is getting chewed up pretty bad. And then yeah, that's normal. There's like a spot under the dust cover that has like very little finish. And just for the record, the picture I rolled in, this is a M&P barrel hood that has probably 3 to 4 times as many rounds through it as the Oracle. So this is wearing very fast, chewing itself up. So I receive it, and in the first 1,000 rounds, when I got it back, they said, hey, this is how the gun should have been from the factory. You should be good to go now. Well, the 1,000 rounds where I was supposedly getting what they should have sent me, it's doing the same things. I'm 1 in 5 rounds. I'm getting a super heavy trigger. In fact, I did it here just to double check it still did it. It's normally 5 pounds. They advertise 4.5 to 5 pounds. I just pulled a 7.5, and usually it's heavier than that. I'm still getting the 1 in 5 flyer, and I'm starting to believe whatever's causing that is what's causing this to chew itself up, because it's just so bizarre. And yeah, so they fixed it, but kind of not really. So I cleaned it after the 2,000 rounds, and then in the last 1,000 rounds, like really nothing has changed. It wasn't a matter of getting like broken in after getting recoated and fixed. It wasn't a matter of like time. It's still doing the same stuff, and it's just kind of eating itself up in certain spots. 3,000 rounds, that is the timeline when I ran into issues. So some things to consider before you buy one of these, and then I'll give my final thoughts on this. This gun cost me $2,200. I got the gun and then 5 magazines. Some people might lean towards this gun, like right-handed people, or just in general, as compared to other single action guns, just off of what it offers for the money. To highlight that, a Staccato P that would only come with 2 magazines and just 1 optic plate. This gun comes with 3 optic plates. It's going to be around $2,500. Now, if you look at and that's just the most popular Staccato P. Other ambidextrous options, the FN High Power is $1,400, and it is not red dot ready and does not have a Picatinny rail to attach a light. So you would have to send it to Mark III Firearms to get that work done. From my emails with them, it would end up costing roughly the same as this gun. But custom work is custom. It could be different. Completely different type of gun, but a Smith & Wesson CSX is about $620. I'm sure they go on rebate and on sale all the time. That's a significantly smaller handgun, but it is also an ambidextrous single action only gun. And I don't think those are red dot ready or have a rail either. And then what was recently announced, the Staccato HD, I use the 4.5 inch island front sight version. That's $2,700. And that is ambidextrous, takes Glock mags, but again, no plate. And I believe that would only come with 2 of their mags. Now, that's for the ambidextrous folk. If you're right-handed only, I'll throw a couple other ideas at you. The Stealth Arms Platypus 1635, when I built one out, I have heard nothing but good things about the Platypus. Also takes Glock mags, but that is right-handed only, 2011. The one I think is the coolest is the Dan Wesson DWX. I don't even know if I can't remember if they discontinued that or not, but anyway, that one is $1,850, and then you're looking at another $300 to get that cut for an optic. So again, right around what this would cost and under the Staccato P. A Langdon Tactical 92XI, the single action only, Beretta 92. I think Beretta 92s are super cool. I've shot a Langdon 92 and it was very nice. That's $1,350. It's a very good gun if you're right-handed. I don't know if there's any like ergonomic issues with the XI, them adding the safety, but that would be one I would look at too. And the one I originally thought about doing before this came out is a CZ SP01, is $800, and then you can get it converted to single action only and cut for an optic at Cajun Gunworks or CZ Custom. And I was gonna get the CZ85 ambi slide release install, but obviously you don't have to do that. And I believe in my emails with them, it would be under what one of these cost. So those are some options. I'm sure the market is going to change as the Staccato HD comes out and other people try to like kind of do what this gun did. But those are some other options I would consider if I was looking at this gun. So going into final thoughts, what do I think about the Oracle Arms 2311? Well, I appreciate what they did. I think they moved the pistol space forward in this idea. And clearly, you know, Staccato's doing the same thing, but with Glock mags, right? Now, who did it first? That's anybody's guess. But I do appreciate that that's where the 2011 style gun is going. However, their slogan, and maybe it's changed since then, but when I bought it was, Duty Gun Reliability Race DNA. And unfortunately, this doesn't have any of it in my experience. Duty Gun Reliability, the fit and finish is not at a high enough standard that I would trust my life to it. It has too many little quirks and like things not fitting right and whatever. To their credit, it did go bang every time I pulled the trigger. When it, the only time I had an issue as far as that goes is when I put a different spring in there. But it's not like it's eating itself alive, and I've run into countless issues with it. Countless, more like 4 or 5. But anyway, Race DNA. I don't know anybody that shoots open that doesn't tinker with their gun left and right. And this, according to Oracle, this takes 1911, 2011 parts, P365 parts, and P320 parts. And in my experience, it just doesn't. It only takes Oracle Arms parts. So there's that. It only runs with, properly at least, with very low power factor competition loads. So they got that, but that it directly affects the duty gun portion of this gun. And it's just not ready to be considered a duty gun in my experience. I don't hate it, but it's just not there yet. And again, I got the first run of this, so maybe it's just mine and the subsequent models have been fixed. The other thing to consider is now a lot of their models are ported, and in general, or you want to lighten how it's sprung. So maybe this gun was originally designed to be ported, and then they just came out with this first because it's like the base model, the simple one, and they didn't change anything except closing up some ports. So maybe that's what it is, but at least in my experience, like I appreciate what they did, and I like this gun like cerebrally, like in my head, I like this, but in practice, it's just not there yet. I'll roll in the Blicky breakdown board and you can see where it stacks up against some of the others I've looked at.